Okay, let's get started.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. We're live streaming. Thank you all. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. Before we get started, just as a matter of personal privilege, those that are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think I see Commissioner Rachel Friedland here. Micky, our Assistant City Manager. For coming and letting you know that this is, I believe, now the second year where we've held a symposium like this, an update, Condo Connect, because the legislative session in Tallahassee just ended. And there are important matters, important pieces of legislation that impact condominiums. We are the flagship condominium municipality in the state of Florida. It impacts virtually all of us. So we like to host these meetings whenever we can. And we're fortunate that we're able to invite guests that are willing to come, people that work very hard in Tallahassee. But first I want to say, with Daniela Marquez right here, who puts these on for us. For those of you in the condo management field or on your condo boards, which is, I know, the majority of you, Daniela just became the manager at Bellini on Williams Island, so congratulations. She's putting on these events, so that's a good boss, that's a good board, like that board. So basically, up in Tallahassee, there are people that work very hard. 3 of them are here. So our state senator for, by the way, let me say this. All of these people here represent several cities. So they can't say what I'm going to tell you, which is Aventura is the greatest city in the state of Florida. That is a fact. So, Senator Jason Pizzo is our state senator. He does a fantastic job. Photograph memory. The other 2 elected officials that are here do not have Aventura in their district. But they have condominiums in their hearts, and they work so hard. We were up there, I was up there 3 times this past session with some of my commissioners, and they're always working to make it better. Senator Jennifer Bradley is from the Jacksonville area. It's not her first rodeo, it's not even the second time she's been here. She comes here because she knows how important it is to us. That is really, truly amazing, and I thank you every time for that. When we were in, you can clap for that, when we were in Tallahassee, I guess I broke protocol. I yelled down from the gallery, said, "Can you come to our Condo Connect? Can you come, right? Can you come to our Condo?" She took her phone out. What day? So anyway, I got thrown out, but that's not really important. She's here. State Representative Vicky Lopez represents Greater Miami area. Is that a safe assessment?
Yes.
Fair to say? Vicky is terrific. We love her. We are in the process of adopting her. So I'll let you know how that goes. But we love her. I think she loves us. Works super hard. So you've got the Senate side. I see Senator Ron Silver there. Former Senator Ron Silver. Thank you. Great service to our community. So they're going to tell you what happened in Tallahassee, okay? But one thing that may be of importance to you is Alex here? Alex Teo? Okay. So Alex is the housing director for Miami-Dade County. By the way, I want to let you know that the county mayor, Daniela Levine-Cabo, wanted to be here. She could not make it. I think Melanie is probably here on her behalf. There she is. Thank you, Melanie, for being here. I think Margie's here. Yes, there's Margie. So one thing before they get started that's very important is with all the special assessments, You need to know, we need to keep reminding you to tell your neighbors about the county loan program, where we're talking about a pretty decent interest rate. It's called zero if you qualify, and there's a lot of people that qualify, okay? This is not like below the poverty line or anything like that. And we're talking up to 40 years to repay. So it's just for special assessments. It could be a lifesaver. It's very, very helpful. And before we get started, Alex is going to come, kind enough to come here and tell you about it. It's the county housing director, a very important individual. So Alex, do you want to...
Good evening, everybody. Colleagues, on behalf of Mayor Daniela and our board county commissioners and our district commissioner Steinberg, we're glad to be here and to talk to you about the Miami-Dade County Public Housing Condo Special Assessment. Everybody knows that housing is a critical piece to the survival not only of our county, but of our workforce and everybody that's living in our units. Preservation is creation, so this program was intended if a condo special assessment was passed where you live due to 40-year recertifications or the building needing upgrades, this allows you to come to the county and get a loan, as the mayor mentioned, at 0%, 40 years, up to $50,000 per unit. And the restriction is there's an AMI restriction, so you have to be up, you cannot make more than 140% of AMI, but that translates to about $101,000 per individual and about $115,000 for a household of two. So the limits are well established. It's been one of our most successful programs in the last couple of years. We've really helped and facilitated not only a lot of individuals and families, but condo associations, because it allows them to do the required and necessary work to keep up with the deferred maintenance that occurs and to make sure that our residents could remain in place while we take care of their situation. And I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any. If you have any questions to it, the information is on our website at miamidade.gov/housing, or you can call us at 786-469-2209.
I have a question.
Is the unit used as a collateral?
Excuse me?
Is the unit used as a collateral?
Absolutely, yes.
I have a question. How much money is available? Have you tapped the full amount last year?
That's a good question. So we have plenty of dollars in there. We allocated an initial $40 million. It is a revolving because it's funded through our surtax program that we get an annual allocation every year from the state, and we set aside a certain percentage for this program. Upon sale or if some life-changing event occurs in your household.
Or are there things that would say, no, you can't get this money?
It's not based on credit. What will disqualify you are income. If you make too much money over the limit, that's allowable. And equity, correct. And it gets paid directly through the condo association itself. So it needs to make sure that we go through a underwriting mechanism, that we get the information from the condo association to verify and ensure that there are actual charges or repair work that is being conducted as necessary in the unit. Assessment. So if you have a condo assessment that's recent,
Let's say from 2017, they applied.
Are you on a payment plan?
We have assessment from 2017 stuff.
Are you-
And we still have applied for this stuff.
Should continue to make that.
I have to get back to you on that. I don't have that age wrong.
And another thing, it's only your income or your assets included?
So your assets are included, but we allow up to $500,000 in terms of if it's in a savings account, but it is based on your income. If you are making income and you do have a large percentage of savings, we do a formula to make sure that there's a repayment.
Thank you.
I'm not aware of any. I work for Miami-Dade County, but I haven't heard of any. Yes, sir.
Is this for investors?
or only primary?
Primary, to live in the unit.
It's only for the recertification project?
No, it's for any type of assessment that's done for the entire unit. Yes, ma'am.
A part of what you're talking about, but I wanted to know, is there any limit on the amount of the assessment, the percentage of the assessment compared to the value of your condo?
That's a good question. So we are only authorized to go up to $50,000 per unit for the assessment.
But in general, I'm saying, even without your program, is there any rule at all about charging people a third of the value of their condos compared to the assessment?
So it's based on the,
Compared to the value versus the assessment?
it's not what the value is, based on the value of the assessment that's being done on the building. So essentially, if your condo special assessment is $25,000, you could go up to $25,000. If you just want to come in and apply for $5,000, you can do that as well. Okay. One more.
Yes, some buildings have special assessments in different parts, so if you apply once and it's only for $10,000 and then 6 months from now there's another special assessment that's, do you have to reapply, or can you just have your condo send in the new additional amount?
It's not a credit.
No, it's not an open line of credit, it's per event or per assessment that's required at the time.
So is it a one-time application, or could you apply for a second time if your building passes a second special assessment?
You can apply a second time if
You could apply for
We're gonna move on, and I wanted to give you an email address, District 4, like 4, at miamidade.gov with additional questions. Also, I think Margie is probably gonna be staying here, and Melanie, if you have questions they work for our county commissioner and our county mayor, so you can get your questions answered also after. But we're gonna move on, we're gonna start with our panel. And I did just want to say that if you recall during COVID, our senator, Jason Pizzo, I just have to say, I don't think he slept during the entirety of COVID. But if you have any issues and you call this office night or day, you're going to get results. A lot of it had to do with, as I recall, unemployment compensation when nobody's working tireless. So I want to give a shout out to that. Travis Moore with that beautiful double-breasted jacket. He's going to moderate. Very, very experienced. He's a governmental affairs consultant in the condominium space. So very well versed in what's happening, what might happen, and what did happen. And he's going to take over.
Mayor, if I can just quickly, I know there's a question about Broward. So I represent 20 cities, the majority of which are now in Broward. So we're into our offices as well. And I do want to recognize a few people here. I see Sean Lahaki and Zoraida Druckmann from Senator Lauren Book's office, who is in Broward County. We have Connie Furs here from Representative Hillary Cassell's office. We actually are in the same office building in Hollywood. I see myself, I see Joanne here, Olivia's here. If you guys can raise your hands, if we do pointing during questions and panels, to the folks that are raising their hands, they're the ones that give you my number, what the hell did he just say, what was that email address, where do we call? Zoraida Druckmann's right here. So they'll be here, they'll be floating, and between Broward and Dade, we have most of the county, I think, covered. And I just want you guys to appreciate, I know it's not convenient to come here, especially at night with the traffic. But to my left is Senator Jen Bradley, who, even though I filed bills related to this for years and it took forever, following Surfside, someone who lives 361 miles from here and drove 5 hours and 16 minutes to get here this afternoon to talk to all of you, has taken on this role and this responsibility directly in the Senate, and I could not be more proud and thankful
to you. Okay, Travis, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here. We will introduce folks, kind of the panelists, as Senator Pizzo kind of already just did, Senator Bradley, but as we get rolling. I know a lot of people are frustrated and upset and concerned and disappointed and disillusioned with with government in general. But I want to tell you that the way all of the things that we're going to be discussing tonight came together is an absolute project in how government works. Last year, following the passage of Senate Bill 154, these folks, along with the mayor and others, held a series of town hall meetings. And they were there initially really to kind of talk about this is what's happened regarding milestones and SIRS and all of the things. But then they began to hear from the audience and from participants concerns about condos. And they started listening, which is the very first, I think, most important thing, and writing down what they heard. I'll just give you one quick example, and then we'll explain some of this. There was a discussion about, we go to our condo board meetings, and we aren't allowed to ask any questions. We're not allowed to participate. We just sit there, and we just are told what's just happened to us. And then the other side of the room said, oh my God, you guys are so lucky. I mean, you guys have meetings? Wow. I mean, we don't even, our condo hasn't had a meeting in 2 years. I think we heard in like Key Biscayne. So they literally were writing these things down, and the legislation that passed, and you are getting the early shot at this because session just ended March 9th. The bills that we're talking about today, none of them have yet gone to the governor. We suspect that they will soon. We'll talk about that process. But when these become law, those are the things the types of things that they heard directly from you and people like you in town halls all over, certainly the Tri-County area and around the state. Those are the things that were addressed. And sure, things get negotiated and discussed, but I just want to let you know that your voice and your being here does matter. Just so we kind of know who we're talking to, I want to get an idea of how many of you, I'm assuming the majority of you are residents, board members, volunteers, involved in condominiums as opposed to HOAs. Okay, well there are some, like I'm the president of my association, and we're going to not get involved in too much back and forth because that can be exciting. I'm the president of my HOA. It looks like a condo, but we're in fact set up as a 720. Right, but I just want to make sure that because there's some bills that passed this year, unlike the last year when we were here talking, if you were in an HOA, then you didn't need to really be paying much attention at all. That is not the case this year. There was significant HOA reform that did pass that we're going to talk about. Let us start with the condo, but before we start with the condo reform, I want to start with the My Safe Florida Home Program extension into condos, to now allow condos. Representative Vicky Lopez, and I'm going to hand the mic now over to her and let her not only introduce herself, but explain, and it passed as her bill, House Bill 1029.
I would like to say that I do represent the vast majority of the city of Miami and the village of Key Biscayne, but I love Aventura. That's what I do want to say, I have 667 condo associations in my little district. It's a lot of district. And the one thing that I want you to know is I'm invested in this, but I have a partner in the Senate who doesn't happen to have, maybe she has one or two condos, and she is equally invested with me, and I think that reflects incredibly big on her. This is something that she's had huge passion for, and quite frankly, none of this gets done unless you have a partner like her in the Senate. So I want to thank Senator Bradley for not only being here, but for being who she is, despite the fact she only has 2 condos in her entire district. So, we've been talking a lot about property insurance. I'm pretty sure if your insurance went up like ours went up, I live on Brickell. And boy, oh boy, did we see insurance premiums go up. Ours went up from $400,000 to $1,400,000. So, there was this talk about the My Safe Florida Homes program that applied for single-family homes and townhomes, right? They could get a free inspection from the state, and then whatever the inspection reflected in terms of their roof and their exterior doors and windows, they could apply for a grant up to $10,000, right? It was wildly popular. We had to refund it this year. Guess who got lost behind all of this? Us. the condo residents, right? We call condos our homes, and we were never included in that great program. So this year, the Speaker of the House and I sat down and I said, what if we did a pilot program? I don't know that it works in a building, quite frankly, but what if we did? So this year, the legislature appropriated $30 million to try it. And what does that mean? That means that any condo association, on the unanimous vote of every single person in the building, because remember, you can't harden half the building. You can't harden 2 units and expect to get an insurance reduction, an insurance premium reduction. So everyone in the building would have to agree, look, let's take a look at this program. So you would get, if you all agree, everyone unanimously votes for it, then the association would contact the Department of Financial Services for an inspection. And the inspectors would come out and look at your roof and look at your exterior doors and windows. At that point, they'll issue a report, and if there is a need to harden, and by that, bring it up to code or make some adjustments, then you can apply for a grant. And the grant is up to $185,000 maximum per building. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it goes a long way. And for the buildings that have been hardened, they have seen a huge reduction in their insurance premium. So we're hopeful that this program, and I'm really hopeful that it will be some fabulously well, used here in South Florida, because we have the most condos in the entire state are here in South Florida, both in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. They're the ones that are the highest risk when a storm comes for damage. So I'm hoping that all of you, before the $30 million gets used, because once the $30 million gets used, and I have to go back next year and say, oh, it was wildly popular too, and reflect that in fact your insurance premiums did go down. So if you are a member of an association in this building, here tonight, please go back to your board, tell them about this. The governor, I know, is one of his major priorities. I fully expect him to sign it. It will be effective July 1st. We'll give the Department of Financial Services some time to, implement the program, but they already know, they're already in the process, if you will. So make sure that everybody takes advantage of it. If you have any sense that you might need to harden your building, this is just the program to do so.
Representative, I can imagine that there might be a question such as, would the association have to pay for the inspection?
No, the inspection is free.
Yes, ma'am, and let me just so we know the flow, what we'll do is, we'll take some questions after each one of these, and then at the end, if we have time, we'll follow through with some, general questions. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, it's the My Safe Florida Home Program for condominiums. So the My Safe Florida Home Program has been on the books for single-family homes for some time. It had the program was still in statute, but the funding for it had kind of lapsed some years ago. The legislature, during the special session on insurance, really boosted that funding for single-family homes. And people like Representative Lopez, Representative Machowski from just up north in the Broward area, Senator Pizzo, Senator Bradley, and others were saying, well, wait a minute, a condo unit is also a home. What about the hardening there? So during the special session, it was not expanded for condos, but the seed was planted with the speaker and others, and they said, you know what? Let's have a larger discussion about this during the regular session. True to her word and his word, the Representative Lopez and the speaker got together. So now, again, it's just a pilot program, but I would encourage you to go for it and do it. It doesn't cost you anything. You could get that grant money, and then we can show, hey, going forward, look, this is wildly popular and we need more money for it. Yes, sir, you have the mic, and then if you could pass it down to this gentleman.
Yes, so the bill will not go into effect until July 1st, okay? So we can't do anything before that. Afterwards, we have to wait for the Department of Financial Services to actually implement the program. They're going to have a form ready for the inspectors. They're already looking at inspectors, so I would say come August would be a good time to touch. You can touch base with my office or certainly Senator Pizzo's office. I know he's probably going to get a lot of questions on this as to when they're ready and how to.
I just want to save some person some arms. This is being recorded. It will be on the City of Aventura's website. Olivia is going around with the microphone, so those watching live stream can actually hear your questions. So the phones that are being held up in the back, you can get this, you can rest your arm, and you can watch on your phone later. Also, and a lot of you, we know each other. A lot of the people in the room, I've seen a lot of familiar faces. I want you to be able to use this. Senator Bradley and I have done a number of town halls. If you're hearing something different than what's coming out of our mouth tonight, I want you to show the recording. I want you to tell people who have a different interpretation, no. I actually met with and was at the meeting with the people who wrote the law. Okay? So that's a great utility of why we like to record these things and disseminate them. There's still a lot of misinterpretations. Senator Bradley and I get a lot of texts from people saying, the board president said this. So one of my favorite scenes from back to school in Riding Dangerfield is when the teacher said he didn't know the first thing about bonding it, so he calls her bonding it on the phone. You can do that. So if there's an interpretation of a statute or some rule, and this happens to me. My property manager literally said she was put in Tallahassee. I said, do you know what I do for a living? It's because you do something with the government. Okay, so the point is, ask away, ask after. I think there's a lot of interest peaked from Alex's presentation, obviously, about the special assessment fund that's available. Selfishly, for my district, my 20 cities, we want to apply as fast as possible. We'll find out if there's a priority contingent. But ask the questions, and this is available afterwards. Everybody just relax, let Micky, let's go.
To apply for it and they harden their own unit. That won't help us. That's not the intent. We have to harden the entire building because remember, your insurance policy is a master plan that covers the entire building. So, you can insure your own contents inside your building, right? But that's not part of this program.
And part of this was all part of a negotiation. There was a version of the bill that had, where this only, because again, it's a pilot program, so we were like, we just got to kind of wade into this, that said, it's only for associations less than 3 stories. And we said, well, and then the other version had it where it would have also been for unit owners individually and the association. And we said, look, let's make it, any association can apply, can get the inspection, and we'll for this pilot program, we'll say the unit owner for their effort, no, let's just make this about the association. One thing I just wanted to mention is that it's $1,000, the caps that she mentioned with a $175,000 cap, the way that breaks down is $1,000, per unit for the roof. So let's say if you have 40 units, the most you could get for the roof would be $40,000, and then for everything else is $1,500, like your windows, doors, those kinds of things. Excuse me. And then, but again, all of that when added together cannot exceed the maximum cap.
Travis, building B, and there's 7 buildings on the property. Is the bill rather silent on as to whether or not it's unanimity amongst the entire association of all the unit owners, or just at that building?
Just in that building is but I will get back to you on that. Yeah. We had a question here, and then we will move off of this.
Unanimous. I mean, just getting 20% of owners to vote in an election is a full-time job for me. I take a whole month off of work just to do that. Getting 500 plus owners to agree, that can take 6 months or more. That's the part that concerns me. Should we be doing that now? So come July and can we do that?
Probably a good idea. You could certainly say, look, at this program is coming. Would everyone like to participate? If and when it is, and listen, the governor's signing it. I know this for a fact. So it's happening. So you could say, effective July 1st, we're going to have this program in place. You're more than welcome to start. I would start the process now, yes, because we know. Look, at some point I wanted to make it just majority, but they didn't. No, that was negotiated out.
Sometimes things, the only way for something to pass or to get incrementally passed is to acquiesce to some deal. Senator Bradley and I were not crazy about the original House version of the condo bill. Certain parts, before Representative Lopez had it. It's something we seek to revisit the following year, or maybe the years after. Unanimous voting on this is tantamount to being impossible, in my view. Right? So I think it should be majority, supermajority, whatever you want to be, or a supermajority of those voting, as opposed to every year. So we just need to get past
Do we have to present something technical to say we have a we have unanimous? Do we have to?
Yeah, you will have to, in the minutes, will have to show that you did, yeah.
Gonzalez, how you doing, Ms. Bradley? I testified on SB 1178. I went to the first committee, I went to the third committee. I basically personified exactly what I was
Hey,
going
Jonathan,
through as a homeowner.
when we get to that, I'll call on you.
Okay,
We're gonna go through a couple of
This is
these.
not the question panel, right?
Not for that bill yet.
Okay, which bill are we on? I'm sorry, I got
We're
your name.
we're on 1029, the My State Florida Home Program, and we're now gonna talk about vacation rentals, but Jonathan,
Because
I'll
you know I'm
remember.
your number one fan.
I know.
I love you, Miss Bradley.
I know.
Queen.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
If
Thank you,
people
John.
interested. For one person to get to the whole building when we have nothing on paper means nothing. And in order to get this going in July, we've got to start now. But without specificity, we can't do anything.
I have
think it's up to you.
Yes, I've prepared a sheet that I've given to a lot of people that summarizes the law, and it's great because it tells you exactly what you have to do.
And in addition to that, one other thing I'd like to suggest to you is a phone number for the person who is presenting it to the board, because there will be many questions. Some will be innocuous and stupid, but some will be good. So there has to be a phone number where we can reach you. I mean, it may sound bizarre to you, but you know that every building has some very good people.
And we're gonna be talking, when we get to condo reform, you're gonna be, hopefully you will still be here right in the front row paying attention, because we have some good stuff for you. I do want to give, yes ma'am, I forgot about you. Go ahead. Launch away.
Okay, so.
And this will be it on this topic. We'll come back. No. We'll come back.
Thank you guys for being here. I'm a reporter. I'm wondering, where did the $33 million come from? Like, how did you guys determine that that was a safe number? And how will the condos be prioritized if it's not enough?
Okay, so the $30 million was a number that came up with budget negotiations.
This year, we can go back and get more, but the thought is, like, I can't get a majority of people to agree that today is Wednesday.
Representative Lopez brings up a good point. If you're 600 units, or 250 units, or 150 units, you come back and say, we got 75%. That's empirical data for Representative Lopez to say, hey, no one in this legislative body had elected with 75% of the vote, and you're here. So, and then it shows, the pattern shows that somewhere the sweet spot is around 66, 67% of the people participating and voting for it. That should be the threshold. And then that's why we revise the law.
Okay, now, we're going to move off this, but I'll come back to you later for general questions, so try to remember the question on this. I just want to give out also, Jonathan, I'm not forgetting you. I'm coming back. All right. We're going to talk now real quick about vacation rentals. Now, and this is not meant as a political statement in any way, shape, or form. Of the bills that we are talking about, in my discussions with the governor's office and others, I mean, just as a handicapper, if I was to go down to the racetrack, if I was just to handicap which one of these could be of opportunity for veto, this would be the one. This bill has been around for 8 years. This bill has obviously has never passed. This is the first year that it has passed. Senator Pizzo, would you, I certainly can talk about this. Would you like to opine at all about the vacation rental bill as it passes this year?
I'm actively participating in killing every short-term rental bill the 6 years I've been in office because not just doing a bill SB 714. It started with, I'll give you by way of example, 3 violations or more can result in a suspension or revocation of a unit. I asked the bill sponsor, Senator Presented, on the floor, if those 3 violations could be occurring in the same calendar day. He said yes. The House was listening to my questions. The bill went back to the House. It came back from the House with 5 or more violations over 30 or more days, which is tantamount to really having no relief whatsoever. This year's we rejected that bill. We did not accept the House version. This year, the bill started in the posture of being the House's version from last year. I don't sit on a particular committee. I asked the chair if I can sit on it. He said, yes, you can. And I just exploded on negotiating against ourselves and this being bad for local home rule and for the residents. I live in a condo now. Our our family does. I used to live in North Miami Beach and Eastern Shores. I've had a gun pulled on me. I've had people sitting in the backyard asking what's my problem, why can't they stay there? But I think that those who govern closest should be governing the best. And so it just went at a frenetic pace toward the end. And in order for it to pass the House Speaker, Representative Lopez's chamber, decided to let it pass as long as there was a carve out for his home county. And Broward. Now, that's effectively not a carve out because 98% of Broward is incorporated. And the county itself has no ordinance. But then there's an exception, there's a carve out for Broward, which is, again, tantamount to nothing, and Flagler County. So I made it very clear, I think I laid a very good self-serving record that would be the most cliche political stunt you would ever see. Second only to the previous House Speaker. You guys heard about the bill where you can now open a bakery in your house or a nail salon or the home business kind of thing. That was because his wife's friend down the street was making cake pops for a Starbucks franchise, and flour was being delivered by trucks at 4 o'clock in the morning in a residential neighborhood. So they preempted your local control over that stuff. This is the politics that I hate, right? So I think the governor is going to veto SB 280. It's just a flagrant kind of exception. And I know that a lot of buildings in Sunny Isles especially have been turned into hotels because of short-term rentals with no accountability. So we do have to get together in a bipartisan fashion this summer and draft or rewrite something, but I look for that bill to be vetoed.
And if I could just add, the interesting part is, remember what I told you, that I represent the city of Miami and the village of Key Biscayne. The bill actually does not pertain to any municipality who had passed its own ordinance prior to June 1st of 2011, and both my municipalities passed their own vacation rental ordinances, so this bill didn't even affect them. So imagine, it's one of those things where you think, as Senator Pizzo said, who knows what's going on here, right? I mean, my cities aren't even affected by it. Whether it passed or it didn't pass, it wouldn't matter. And I don't know how many other cities had passed ordinances prior to that date, and I don't even know how they came up with that date of June 1st, 2011. But whatever, it was almost irrelevant to someone like me, but very relevant to someone who lives in a city that has not yet passed an ordinance to curtail these crazy vacation rentals, especially in buildings.
It takes further control and authority away from local governments and neighborhoods and areas to govern themselves. To say, we'd like to have inspections of homes, we'd like to know if sexual predators or offenders are staying in a neighborhood with small kids because they don't have reporting requirements. We would like the same protections hotels are allowed to have to keep people out. But the problem is you can have noise violations, drugs, cars, porn being shot in the back, all of these things going on, and the idea basically was you were supposed to call a phone number in Tallahassee to file a complaint. Is anybody here from DVPR?
No.
Does anyone think DVPR does a great job over condos?
No.
So imagine my disappointment that the solution and remedy to short-term rentals regulation was going to be to add a few more employees at DVPR and let them have a phone line, hotline for you to complain.
Thank you.
Section based, give it to the sponsor and say, I don't care what you do, as long as this section's in there. And that said, essentially, that when they're preempting these rules, regulations, etc., from local government to the state, that it does not in any way supersede an association's documents and their rental, whatever their rental rights and rental restrictions are for 7, 18, 19, and 20 condos, co-ops, and HOAs. And I would just tell you, and talking to the governor's office, I represent an association, a large association in Flagler County, who had the distinction of their member happened to get himself elected Speaker of the House. So I'm like, your member is the Speaker, so that's who you should talk to. Might have had something to do with the fact that they did not agree with my assessment. They said, well, look, Flagler County has a really good ordinance, which many local governments do. I said, you do not need to worry about this. It doesn't matter. And they said, no, the county's told us that we need to worry about it because of occupancy and this, that, and the other thing. So I said, all right, well, you now pay me to worry about it, so I'll worry about it with you. So, but when I talked to the governor's office about this bill, I said to the governor, I said, look, associations, whether it be in Flagler County or anywhere else, are going to be fined if this bill does not become law. They're going to operate just like they're operating right now with Flagler County. So I said, Governor, so you do what you want. But this is a real jump ball as far as I'm concerned. With my interests, because they wanted, do you oppose? What's your statement about it? And I said, I don't really care. If you sign it, actually, they're going to be protected. If you don't sign it, they're not. But I said, and I said to them on the phone, I said, however, I don't think this is good policy. I don't think this is the way policy should be made. Now, that's just my opinion. You do what you want. But I think, given some of the conversations, there is some concern about that. But it did pass this year after it had never passed before, so I just want to bring that up. Are there any questions about that before we get to the real meeting?
What did the governor say when you spoke to him?
Well, I just spoke with staff. I'm not speaking to the governor. So they took note of my comments.
I was told by some in the governor's office that an adequate record was laid for the argument that the bill should be vetoed.
Yes. Okay. So moving right along, because again, this is being recorded, so we were so thankful. I'm just gonna like this one. This is not a sequel to all the other things you had heard. We passed 4D, we did 100, 154. This, in fact, is a prequel because this could have been done, should have been done years ago. And it is now happened. I think we can all take great pride in this because so many people literally made this happen in this room. So we're going to talk about the condo one first, and then we will talk about the HOA one because there was significant HOA reform following again on what had happened down south with the hammocks and other associations not behaving well at all. And now a lot of the things we're going to talk about in condos also are going to be dealt with HOAs as well. So I can step us through some of this, but I think Senator Bradley, you've been so patient and have said nothing. And as Senator Pizzo said, Senator Bradley has been working on these issues tirelessly, and literally doesn't have the condos.
Great to be here. And so I was the chair of community affairs in the Florida Senate when Surfside collapsed. And that was my entree into this world and the dangers and the concerns. And so during that committee year, during that session, we passed 4D, which was the initial bill that created the milestone inspections and the SIRS. And following that legislative session, we did our first town hall right here in this room. Last year we passed Senate Bill 154 and really fleshed out some more of the questions and really clarified a lot of the concerns that were on 154. And while I don't have condos in my district, I think that's probably helpful because I never looked at any of what was going on as well. That's just the way it is. I started looking at it and hearing from people, and to me, it all just sounded like the Wild West. Like, we need to rein this in. What is happening? There are parts of the state where this goes on, and it just was unacceptable. And so this bill that we did this year, to Travis's point, really is the one that should have been the very first bill that was done years ago. And people have tried doing this. Senator Pizzo has filed bills for years. Others in the Senate, Representative Lopez, there are other members who have tried to get these reforms passed. And I don't think before Surfside there was really the appetite or the focus on these issues. And so after 4D and after the bill last year, we were left with a situation where condo owners were trying to navigate these milestone inspections, trying to navigate their SIRS and their reserves and have meetings. And what was abundantly clear was they had no tools
to be able to do that in a structure that would allow them to have sort of orderly administration, where if things went off the rails, they didn't have to hire private attorneys and self-finance their remedies, and there was no ability for law enforcement to come in and address bad actors and corruption and bullying. So this is the bill that should have been passed first, but it's passed, that just passed, to really provide our associations with a framework to navigate what we've already passed. And there are a lot of sections of the bill, and as Rep. Lopez indicated, a lot of these provisions came from town halls and from sitting down and from emails and from listening to folks. And perhaps you want me to step through them, or do you want to why don't you step through the sort of the major sections of them, and we can kind of go into details.
What we'll do is let's first start just in kind of order of the bill, if and when you go to flsenate.gov and you're looking at these things. We'll start with what changes we made in Chapter 4, the legislature made in Chapter 468, which is the Community Association Manager statute. The Community Association managers and the firms and the managers themselves, the CAMs, have to be licensed, obviously, under 468. So we made a couple of changes. One of them is that the CAM and the CAM firms have to return all community association records in their possession within 20 business days of termination of a service agreement or a written request, whichever occurs first, with license suspension and a civil penalty put onto it if they do not do that. And the penalty is $1,000 a day. So they could lose their license, and then also, I don't know how long they would want to sit around and not hand over records. And the reason for that is we had heard stories of, we're trying to go with a new management company. We don't, we had a problem with our old, and they're just slow walking this. They're not giving us what's ours, and that is unacceptable. It belongs to the association. 20 business days should be enough time for them to wrap it up and get it over to where it needs to go. The bill, we also put in a conflict of interest disclosure requirements and a process for associations to follow when approving contracts with their CAMs and their CAM firms. And we basically took this directly, tweaked it to make it work, but out of the section that had passed, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago with Senator Rene Garcia. We took the section that applied to board members, where there's board member conflicts of interest and how that works and how they have to disclose it and they have to leave the room and they, the relatives that they can't use and all of those things. And we said, well, you know what, if that the legislature heard, again, if that's good enough for the board, it should certainly be good enough for the CAM and the CAM firm. CAM firm, including directors, officers, persons with a financial interest in the CAM firm, or a relative of such person, the association has to solicit multiple bids. They have to get 3 bids. They can't just say, oh, well, that was the bid that we got, so that's who we went with. And then again, all of this also you will see starts to build, because it's also going to be all part of records, and then it's also going to all be part of criminal penalties and enhanced DVPR jurisdiction.
Is it 3 or 2, Travis?
3.
Is that in the statute?
That's multiple.
It says there's multiple. And that's
I think, let me make it, that's a good question. There were a lot of changes, so let me make a note of that.
So listen.
Thank you. Requires that the proposed activity that may be a conflict of interest must be listed on, and all contracts and transactional documents related to the proposed activities must be attached to the board's meeting agenda and entered into the minutes. Yeah, right. Requires that the board must approve the contract with a potential conflict of interest and all management contracts by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of all the directors present. Again, it may be that the board's son-in-law has the painting company, that when you look at that may be the best thing. We don't want to say this is the best deal. We happen to have inside access to it, but we can't do it. But it's now, there's a whole bunch of things that have to happen in a supermajority vote in order to pierce that opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
I will read. If management company has ancillary streams of revenue or products or goods or services that they offer the association, what is the disclosure requirement? Or are we contemplating that they're just, we have Diego over there that does contracting and also lives in a condo. Obviously, if it's above board and his entire association is aware of it, and 2/3 or more vote, then it's okay. That's kind of the transparency issue is what we're talking about. So to your point, that's talking about a board member. What about the management company itself that their bread and butter might seem like it's the management fee, but it's actually the other services that
If they're receiving anything of value, and I can read you the whole definition, but that is included in this definition. If they were receiving any remediation, any type of, if they're getting any benefit and profit from that, if that the person that has the conflict, that cannot be.
I understand that they have to disclose that during the bidding process, but how about for the existing contracts? Let's just say they didn't disclose so far. How about for the existing? Are they obligated to go back?
Let me give you my way of example. ABC, not an actual management company that I know of, just using as an example. Jason Management Company manages a building, but also has a painting firm that they own, contracting firm, also has a pool service company that they own, also does carpet cleaning under a different entity, LLC, name, whatever. What is the requirement or obligation and duty of the parent management firm that has obviously a direct nexus and business relationship and derives revenue from other subsidiaries or entities? What is the requirement to disclose that to the residents of the community, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and I would say this is a conflict of interest is deemed to be there if any of these occur. A community association manager or a community association management firm, including directors, officers, and persons with a financial interest in a community association firm or relative of such person, enters into a contract for goods and services with the association. B, a community association manager or a community association manager firm, again, including directors, officers, persons with a financial interest in a community association firm or a relative of such person, holds an interest in or receives compensation or anything of value from a corporation, limited liability corporation, partnership, limited liability partnership, and those contracts.
So those contracts are renewed annually.
And
come next year, upon renewal of any of those services that are being provided to 400 Sunny Isles.
They don't.
Hold on. We don't have to back the lawyer.
They don't have.
Time's up.
In front of the
I understand.
They will start in July 1.
Folks, we're going to have a quick civics lesson for a second, okay? There are 40 state senators. There are 120 representatives. We are in session for 60 straight days every year. 2 weeks out of each month. The preceding 3 to 4 months, we have committee weeks. So it's a good part-time job. Yeah, right. Now, we just got back from session. We passed bills. Mr. Bill, the bill passes in the Senate. It passes in the House. They have to match. They have to be identical. They're presented to the governor to sign. When he signs it, it becomes law. Either July 1st or October 1st of that calendar year. The governor has not received this bill from the legislature yet. He'll have 2 weeks to act upon it once he gets it. If he gets it tomorrow, by April 4th. He has basically 10 business days, 14 actual days. All of the stuff that we're telling you tonight, I'm 99.9% sure is going to be signed into law and will become effective July 1st. When you talk or whatever, but I'm glad you said it. When you come up for the next natural renewal on an annual, it's a fiscal year calendar, when you come up for renewal, they got to drop trial and give full disclosure of each and every single thing. And since you live about 486 feet away from me, okay, I'm going to make sure that you get that disclosure form.
Yeah, it must be listed. It must be listed. We'll talk about this all.
Who's opposing this? Who are the lobbyists who are opposing these common sense rules that you work so hard to implement and they look so natural?
Can I have 30 seconds of this?
Who are the lobbyists?
Decent chunk of this bill is something I filed 5 years ago and 6 years ago. And once I filed the bill, the largest law firm that handles associations, whoever sidetracking, appreciate it, thank you. The largest law firm that handles these associations sent out an email to 13,000 members saying that I was looking to put association members in jail. Pizzo wants to lock them up. That was the bill. One of the very no-brainer sections that I had was reducing the unit count from 150 down to 25 units to make things more transparent, instead of the notice requirement of the 10 days and all that stuff. Standing on the back of the wall here is Martin Langsfeld, whose 26-year-old beautiful sister Nicole was killed in Surfside. I got so much pushback, emails, there's actually one going on tomorrow that's gonna just blast my name out about how I'm looking to put people in jail by this bill passing. You're taking kickbacks and bribes and all that stuff, right? Well, I want to do it from 150 units to 25. Does anybody know how many units were in Surfside? 136.
For the website. Wow.
For the website. So you don't have to ask where are the documents, where are the records, where are this and where are that. And I'm so tired of, I live in a condo, the association has changed management companies in both buildings where I own units in Sunny Isles. And they always say, I don't know, we couldn't get the records from the management company. I don't know the last people that had to be. But we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about the physical characteristics of the building, the quality of life, and everybody does this. And that's just too Miami for me. It's not built that way. So it's tough love. It's a lot of go slow, hurry up. But I think if you're getting your unit renovated, you've got horror stories about your master association president giving millions of dollars to contractors, and all of a sudden new cars, new boats, and new units are ending up in the building. I think that should be illegal. You should go to jail. And a lot of the association attorneys who make their money and their livelihood off building associations. The first town hall we had here 5 years ago, Eli and Ellie Lopez stood up there from Boca Raton. They lived in Boca View condo, 72 units. And guess what happened? They sat here, Paul Bashir was here, he was the DDPR secretary, and they stood and just told their story about how horrifying it was that they had a $484 dispute and they were getting sued by their association, and the bills were mounting up with a law firm, the largest law firm handling these things. Their legal bill got to $250,000 on $400, and their association fee, I think, was $516 a month. You know what the law firm did after a town hall? They went to court and on the record said, Senator Pizzo held a town hall. We think that's an out-of-court statement and we should be declared the winner here. These firms have bankrupted people over these disputes. And you guys all pay for it, and I'm tired of it. I'm also tired of, and I've said this before, and Senator Bradley knows this, associations that have deferred maintenance and remain popular and get reelected. When you come up to me to aisle 5 in Publix in Sunny Isles, or I see you on the street somewhere in a car dealership or somewhere else, you say, oh, Senator, I saw you on TV. My association fee's gone up 50%. Well, when last year it was static at a certain number, the same the year before that, the same before that, while the price of bread, milk, juice, gas, college, everything's gone up, you guys got screwed. Asleep at the switch. Somebody was. Not a good steward of your dollars and deferring maintenance. And living really, really lean. And the analogy we always give is, if you and I buy the same car, and I treat it well, and I take it to get service, and change the tires, and lube everything up, and everything's good, and you treat your car horribly for 10 years, our unit should not be worth the same. And you're going to have a much more expensive visit to the doctor than I am. Having said that, Jim Bradley's here. Go ahead.
Senator Pizzo just said is absolutely correct. And but the next point is, even if we did nothing, even if the legislature didn't pass a bill, costs and reality was going to come to condos, because the private insurance market, watch what happened. The banks, the lenders, change was coming after Surfside, whether the legislature did anything or not. So we gave it a framework. We have inspections that now underwriting is going to look at banks, loans, insurance. We have milestone inspections. We now have set associations on a path to have healthy reserves so that the people that live there for a few years don't get to kick their expenses to whoever's moving in. That upkeep is going to lead to better maintained buildings, lower insurance premiums, a bit more comfort in the property insurance market, that lending and insuring condos is a good risk because they know that the buildings are maintained, they know that they have reserves. So whether, you can blame me if you want for the increased cost. Whether we passed a bill or not, costs were going up because the private market saw what we all saw, and that there was an absolute misalignment between the actual cost to live in a condo and the price that the cost that people were actually paying. and kicking the can down the road and putting it on the next owner, and nobody paying their fair share of the cost to sustain the integrity of the building and the cost to maintain and put away. So a reckoning was coming. I think we have streamlined that reality shift that we're seeing now.
How do you report penalties?
I don't want to lose focus because I went and I got those financial records. I got those financial records that I asked for, and I requested the accommodation for the records. When I got these records, I'm looking at this, and it says that we have pest control. We're paying about $15,000 in pest control, and these are the official records. I could call the association right now, and they will tell you, sorry, we don't have pest control. You have to do it on your own. So let's just say we get to that part, right? Let's get to the part where we actually got the records. Because it's hard enough to get the records as it is. So when I finally get the records, they sit there and lie and put this stuff about pest control. So what if we know that they're lying, and how do we prove that? Where do we go from there? And I apologize if I'm being loud or if I'm being interrupted, but I have a burning desire to get this across. I'm so sorry. I live in Ramblewood, East Coral Springs, well, specifically 4126 Northwest.
That's fine.
Okay.
So we greatly expanded the.
Go ahead. Go give them our information, and I'll give your financials tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. So we GDPR, as you rightly point out, Jonathan, and many of you would say if you contacted them, they would say not within our jurisdiction. That was the magic words. It had to be 3 very specific things. 4 now. I know. I see you, ma'am. Yeah. Go ahead. Why don't we ask that question?
I just wanted to double check. HB 1021 that we're discussing right now, are there any parameters in which a condo would be affected? Like, for example, does my condo have to have at least 100 units to fall under this law?
No.
Every condo. All condos no matter what size.
Correct. Yeah, good question.
Okay, a couple more here.
Second, I'm going to explain that to you.
I think we've gotten into, so this is what I want to take a second to do. I want to do a 30,000-foot overview of each section that's in this bill so that we don't get mired down. So let's start. Number 1 is the CAMs. It's our community association managers, and Travis has already talked a little bit about that. But we have set forth provisions to make sure that conflicts of interest, if they exist, are disclosed, that it requires a supermajority to enter into that contract. If they do exist, those contracts have to be a part of the agendas. It has to be full transparency. You'll see a theme of transparency through each of these sections. So the first is community association manager. And so it's in that section 470, I think it's 478, 476. So that's going to be the same for HOAs and for condos, because it addresses community association managers. The second has to do with official records. And now condo associations with 25 units or more have to have their official records on a website for people to access. That's the number 1 issue, is we can't access our records. We don't have the ability to have access to what we need. So we've got the websites now for condos are 25 units or more. You need to be have all those records updated on the website. Is criminal violations. We saw reporting from DPR when we asked them, what complaints are you answering? Who is getting resolution from you? And one of the line items on their spreadsheet of the reason why there wasn't a resolution given to someone is because there was a crime committed. That's outrageous. If a crime is being committed, DPR needs to be referring that matter to law enforcement so that law enforcement has a clear point of access to the problem. And so the bill requires DPR to refer to law enforcement if 718, if any of the provisions of 718 have been violated. And then it sets forth criminal penalties related to association activities that we would all agree should be criminal penalties. And that is destruction of records, willfully and repeatedly failing to give an owner records that they should have, intentionally defacing or destroying records, and then with regard accepting kickbacks, soliciting bribes, and then we also addressed some of the fraudulent voting activity. We really just picked up out of our election law and put it right in condos. So you can't, if there's fraudulent voting activity occurring, law enforcement can come in and hold those people accountable. And there was a question earlier about who pushes back against this. There was a lot of pushback from folks saying no one will ever serve on a board if there are criminal penalties for intentionally destroying records and committing election fraud. So I suggest to you, if you plan on doing those things, don't run for your board.
Or president.
They not live in the unit that they own, right? They may not even live in Miami. They may live outside of Miami. Many of my constituents in my district live in other countries. And you know how it works. If you want to keep control of your board, how do you do it? You manipulate the elections. And how can you best manipulate elections? Well, the law before this bill was passed was that you had to send the ballots, ready, either by U.S. mail or, that's the operative word in the sentence, electronically. What do you think the boards were doing? Sending by U.S. mail to Venezuela, to Argentina, to Spain, the ballot by U.S. mail. When do you think it got there? Way after the election. And so I actually put this in at the very last minute because I was dealing with an election fraud in Brickell Place. It's been going on for 2 months, where the owners were told that the election would be on January 28th. And they arrived from all over the world. And on January 26th, they were told, no, actually, we're not having the election on the 28th. And they said, okay, well, while we're here then, let us have our ballots. They said, no, we have to reprint them. Now, mind you, what were they doing with the other ones that were ready to go on the 28th? So then the owners said, all right, well, then we have to return home to our jobs and our families. Can you give it to us electronically? And they were told, no. And today, if you ask for anything electronically, you will get it, including the ballot. And I'm telling you, this is a common theme around bad condo boards. But make no mistake that we're not saying that every condo board is a bad board. There are many people who serve on condo boards who serve, I mean, it's thankless. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of good people trying to do a lot of good things, but let me just tell you, we learned that there are a lot of bad people trying to do a lot of bad things. And so, not the least of which is tell you that they're spending money on pest control when there's no pest control.
If an election is scheduled and they have refused to do electronic voting, can we as the owners insist that this election date?
We hear what's going on.
Electronic voting, and how do you address it if you have an upcoming election and you don't believe that the electronic voting is going to be accessible to the folks who want to vote electronically?
They will not have electronic voting, and there's 30% of the owners.
I adore you, but there's people watching online and nobody here can hear you, so we'll give you a microphone if you want.
Let's get through the overall, continue on some of the bullet points, get through, and I want to come back to your question. Major component of the bill has to do with director education. Right now, directors and board members can sign a form saying they've read the bylaws and the documents and they're good to go. Clearly, that's not sufficient. So now you will have to, the directors and officers are going to have to do state training. And that training is you're going to learn about house and inspection, search, record keeping, financial literacy and transparency, fines, meeting requirements. We need to make sure that board members are equipped to exercise their fiduciary duty that they owe to all of the homeowners. So you'll have an education requirement, and then you also will have, when you're elected, and then you'll also have an annual update based on legislative updates, basically a legislative update every year for an hour. You know, the last couple of years would need more than an hour, but it would be, so now there is board member education. I know there would be specific questions on exactly when you have to do it, but we will get to those, and there will be a lot of education that has to take place on how condominiums and associations are going to get the certificates of education for their members, and how do they let DVPR know. All of that that is addressed in the bill, but just sort of big picture, director education now is in Florida law and has not been in Florida law before, and it's an important component so that people are able to act, to carry out the fiduciary duty that they owe to their homeowners. This is through DPR. Yeah. The next big issue, just because I'm looking at the clock, and I just want to make sure that people have a sense of the other components of the bill. A lot of the bullying and really corrupt behavior that we saw when people would speak out, there was retaliation, there would even be defamation suits that would be financed by the association dollars. Just unacceptable. This is another one of those, I don't have condos in my area, but my gosh, what happens down here? You can't do that. And so the bill does not allow any association dollars to be expended to pursue a defamation action against an individual owner. We expand the slap protections. There's express anti-retaliation. If you use proper channels to complain to a government official, to complain to your board, to exercise your rights as homeowners, association dollars are not going to be used to just grind you down in court. So that is in the bill as well.
What about meetings? Meeting requirements? We're gonna get into all of these questions.
Three more bets, and we're gonna go down to questions.
I'm so close. I just want to make sure that everybody hears the different areas, and then we will do questions. I promise. You have to meet 4 times a year. You have to give updates on assessments and special assessments. If you've taken out loans or if you've had special assessments to complete a big project, the owners want to know what's happening. What's the status? Has the money been expended? Have we pulled permits? Building permits are now part of the official record for that very reason. So you have to update and make sure that people are informed. And that has to happen 4 times a year. It doesn't need to be 4 separate, distinct meetings, but 4 times a year, the board's going to have to meet and provide those updates and give people an opportunity to have their questions answered.
And that's on top of the budget and the election meeting.
Yes, it is 4 meetings that satisfy the requirements of that section, which is having an opportunity to question and get updates on specific things, which include what the bill says. You can ask questions. You can ask questions on the status of construction or repair projects, revenues and expenditures, and other condominium issues. For assessments, the purpose, the cost of assessments, and copies of proposed contracts. So we really try to give an opportunity 4 times a year for owners to be able to know what's happening financially, with building projects, and the like. So that is an important piece of the bill. This is not every small change, because there was some hurricane hardening. Lastly was with regard to DBPR. DBPR's jurisdiction, pre-turnover was very broad. They could do, they had broad authority to be able to go in and address a bunch of different issues. But the existing law before this bill, once turnover happened, it was a very, very narrow lane for DBPR. It was elections and records, but even then they only have 45 investigators throughout the state, and that includes all the other things that DBPR regulates, like auctioneers and barbershops and nail salons, so the final thing that the bill did was it greatly expanded DBPR's jurisdiction. And it also included an almost $7 million recurring funds to hire 65 additional DBPR employees, many of which located here in South Florida. They're not in my district. Many of which here in South Florida, to be able to address, and I'll briefly spell it out. Sorry, my contacts are bad. Okay, it expands the jurisdiction to include financial records, annual financial reporting, broader scope for elections, access to records, procedural aspects of the meeting, quorums, votes, proxies, conflicts of interest that we just described, removal of board members. Because if you are charged with one of the criminal offenses that I described, you are deemed removed from office, and DPPR has this jurisdiction to remove you from office. Procedural completions of the structural integrity reserve studies, and any written inquiries by a unit owner in the association. So if you have a concern and you write a letter to DPPR and you spell out exactly what your issue is, your election issue, whatever your issue is, DPPR has the jurisdiction to go in and address the concern. You don't have to hire a private lawyer at your own expense to be able to run down things, statutory compliance issues that DPPR really should be doing. And it includes money for 65 additional staff. And so.
Yes. And back there, and I know right there.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you very much for everything you've done. I'm one of 4 residents who are being sued for defamation by a corporation. The reason being, defamation, when I first moved into where I live, I set up a thing called Community Voice, which was to give everybody a chance to meet. We started with about 6 people, we have about 200 now. And from that we do social clubs as well, but basically it was to be a bridge between us, the residents, and the board, so that we could send various suggestions and also actually to hold them accountable, because we've had a number of things that we felt we had to hold them accountable. It's an election time coming up, and sadly our president and the lawyer, so in other words, the money we pay for our lawyer, we're suing ourselves. So we're about to head off to court. We don't have the money for a lawyer. We have spoken to many lawyers. We want to know what we do.
I mean, just a little separation of branches here. Have you been served with a complaint with an open lawsuit?
Fortunately, so far, we have.
Have you been served with a complaint? Is there an open lawsuit? Okay.
He's been knocking on the door.
All right, so we can't enter into the judicial branch of government if there's an open suit, but if there hasn't been one, Olivia's going to give you my number, and then we're going to see if we can resolve this tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, just one question.
Well, what I don't want to do is, if it's pending litigation, if it's open, if any of those issues, whatever. And then also, I'm going to be very candid with you if I think that some of the stuff as an attorney that you've been putting on Facebook is really distasteful and wrong, I'm going to tell you the same thing.
Oh, good.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to help you. We'll get on tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank
you.
you.
Up there, and there we go.
Thank you.
So, passing, number 1 should be education of a board member.
Yes.
And board members and directors. Before they take position of directors, as a directors. Elections comes after, but mostly education of board members and directors.
My name is Ernie Baca. I served on the board for 5 years. I hear a lot of people complaining they can't get directors. Correct me if I'm wrong, the Florida statute back in 2019 made a list of all the things that everybody needs to look for, with the exception of the new laws that you make it now. You're adding a few more things to it. Sounds like.
So, nobody was enforcing anything. I'm going to be honest with you. At one point, when we had a town hall here 5 years ago, Lorenzo from DPPR was here. He was the most earnest one. He got to have a heart attack on the job. Nobody does inspections. Nobody does reports. Senator Bradley spoke about it. Was speak very politely to you because in the future, what efficient condo quality of life and operation looks like does not include the DPPR for me. Okay? For too long, they said an issue would arise. You guys have, many of you in this room have come to me with binders and boxes full of great data that if I was a prosecutor, I would love. But the Economic Crimes Unit at the State Attorney's Office, where I worked as a prosecutor for many years, will tell you, well, it's not like Representative Lopez and Senator Bradley when they raise their right hand and take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the State of Florida and that of the United States, which includes a number of activities and actions that we cannot participate in. Board members have a general volunteer duty of fiduciary obligation. That's it. Okay? And so DPPR would say, well, this is not within our jurisdiction. And the State Attorney's Office would say, well, it doesn't quite rise to the level of crime. So there's a huge gray area that we look to close.
Yes.
And what we said was, not only is it closed now, but neither of you have any excuse or responsibility that you don't have the manpower, the resources, the money, the telephone lines, and the ability to go ahead and go after people. There should be nothing that falls outside of the cone of one of these two bodies. And that's what this does. And if, Ernie, if you tell me that a year from now that we've got 150 units out of 25 and you still can't get records 15 days later, that's a problem.
It requires all of the records to be on the website if you have 25 or more units. That should address a lot of issues if those are updated and maintained. But it does add to the financial records, invoices and other documentations that substantiate receipts and expenditures. So it broadens the scope of documents that would be considered records that a unit owner could see that would really be helpful for a unit owner trying to understand whether or not they're valid expenses and were paid appropriately.
So what you're saying is, our roll of financial records is 6-page. It breaks down everything that we have that's been paid out for the month. The 98-page one that comes out, that doesn't go out to the full membership, is out there if you request it, but that has all the detail, it probably has a lot of records.
You're owed that. You're owed it. You should get it.
It'll be on the website. You don't necessarily have to, you don't have to ask for anything anymore. Once this bill passes, you go to the website, you can download them, review them. There's no reason for anyone to be fighting about access to records.
If I can get a MasterCard statement from January of 2015 on my iPhone, you should be able to look at your largest asset in your life and see those records. That's pretty complicated.
This is a password.
Username,
Password for unit owners. We're not putting it up on Facebook.
Invoices should be attached.
Yes. And they, yes.
We have a board members who charge the station to take account classes.
Yes, invoices are included, as you just heard. Correct, and you are absolutely correct. We have a microphone coming
I'll do this question
right
here.
here. Thank you. I think this young lady here.
My name is Nani. Thank you very much for what's happening. I heard there was a bill introduced by partisan regarding hurricanes for the whole state that we would all contribute to a pool of money.
Bills that have been tinkered about. One this past session from your colleague, Representative Roach. We were approached by a rating agency, the Weinstein agency actually, and Maggie, my chief of staff, and I, we met with them up in Palm Beach. The idea was to make all the wind policies go to citizens, and then let the other admitted market and even surplus market be able to go ahead and write policies to lower it. If the political will is finally there, we'll get some insurance stuff done this year. Nothing substantial passed with insurance. I made one amendment to a bill that was required surplus lines. How many of you have citizens? Okay. So I don't know if you remember this, but last year I was really upset because they put the requirement in that if you're in a flood zone, even if you're in the 20th story of a building, you have to have flood insurance. I got it. Yeah, and he goes, that was so beautiful. And I didn't really look at the inside of the furnishings. I brought you here because I brought a bunch of people from the community and stakeholders to show him the buildings that can and can't get insured, the issues, the problems, master associations, towers, to get an understanding of it. The greatest point I want to explain to all of you guys about everyone thinking politicians are all crooked is he sat down and I said, I got to ask you, Tim, you sent me over what the maximum rate schedule was that's allowable as a premium. It was $28,000. You know, Broward has a different cap. Miami-Dade's capped at $1 million in coverage. I have 2 condos in Sunny Isles. I have $1 million in coverage on both of them. I'm on mortgage on either one, but I don't trust a lot of construction problems. So I have citizens for both. I said, you sent me a rate schedule that said the maximum policy rate is $28,000. He goes, yes, I did. I go, great. Why am I paying $36,000 a year for homeowners and for HO6 policy? He goes, Senator, we have no idea. I go, do you know how bad it looks that you're the CEO of Citizens Insurance Company in Florida? Your maximum published rate that you can charge somebody for $1 million of coverage on an HO6 is $28,000, and the state senator for this district, whose dining room table you're sitting at, is paying $36,000. He goes, we really need to dig into it and take a look. I go, how many thousands of my constituents are subsidizing your crappy written policies elsewhere in the state? He said, we need to look into it. Okay? Nothing really substantively happened on insurance, and I'll tell you why, folks. This is why Senator Silvers can speak to this. It's easier to go to 3 or 4 people in Tallahassee and give them $50,000 to $100,000 pack in campaign checks than it is to convince the 564,000 residents we have each. There are very few good souls that don't have larceny in their heart. This is why it becomes nonpartisan on these issues about your safety and quality of life. But the truth of the matter is, Representative Lopez's colleague last year who passed the insurance bill is the general counsel for an insurance company. How consumer friendly is that? I did an amendment this year on another bill that was going to require that you physically have to be in your condo unit for 9 months or more out of the year in order to be eligible to be taken out by another surplus lines carrier for your citizens policy. I shortened it back to 6 months, which tracks and follows everything else. Yeah.
People that are on board say they ain't gonna have to pass for that.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to see legislation on that as well.
Sure. So I know this is going to sound, I'm not being trying to be flippant about this, but if I ask you to list the top complaints that board members have about their interaction with residents, they're like, listen, I'm just a volunteer, I'm doing this in good faith. A lot of that has to do with access to records, or I want to see this, or where are you spending money, and if you were able to say, Eileen and Hallandale, listen, I got nothing on me, it's all up on the web.
It's all up there.
It's all up there.
100%.
100% of your building, all of the information is up there.
100%.
So give the microphone back to Eileen. What's the number one complaint that your residents have?
Okay, give it to me, I'm ready. I'm not on board, my husband is.
Right.
Facebook, for residents, we can't even get the Facebook account. And people put information on board members. Very frustrating. It's a volunteer position.
Do you know who your state senator is?
I do not, I'm sorry.
I'm your state senator.
Oh, I can talk to you after this.
Eileen, do you have your phone?
I do.
Send me a text right now. My cell phone number is 305.
Everybody knows it. Everybody. I'm recording it.
Everybody should take it. 305 505. You have my cell phone number. 8478. Okay?
478.
I really, where's Maggie? Maggie, stand up for a second. 305 505 8478. Maggie's in the dark navy shirt and white pants. Maggie and I used to investigate and prosecute homicides in Miami-Dade County. We don't like bullies. So, call me tomorrow, text me tonight.
Oh, you're gonna get it.
And I want a social media troll with you. All the way to the far on the right there. And then the guy in the back.
No, the guy in the back,
Yes,
I think,
yes,
Olivia, were you here when I gave out the website? Get that to them. Then they will not be able to say they don't have the information. So deputize yourself to give them the information. Regarding Congresswoman Watchman Schultz's legislation, that did not go anywhere. She may still be, I don't know if you noticed, Congress doesn't really get a whole lot done real quickly. So that is not something that has passed or anything yet at this point.
I just want to be very clear about something. We're talking about what's presumably your largest asset. Okay? It's certainly my largest individual asset is my home. Okay? But this is what I want to explain to you. This democracy requires a little participation and a little engagement. And I teach 7th graders civics classes once in a while. I love to do it. I'm speaking to you directly about this. Okay? Closest to your home is your city mayor and commission. You heard from your city mayor tonight, Howard Weinberg. Margie's here on behalf of your county commissioner, Micky Steinberg. I'm here on behalf of your statewide elected officials from the Senate or the state at the state level, right? And texting today with your congressional and your federal level. We're all looking at this bullseye in this ring. And our utility and our purpose is to go ahead and try to do what we can at our level or impress upon those inside of that circle to do what they're supposed to do. A little before I got here, Mayor Weinberg called me about a pool issue at a particular building in Aventura, right? And that's the interplay of how we're supposed to work together. If the people are at the party, I don't begrudge them for being at a party and celebrating right now, but if they're legitimately concerned, they should know who the people are, the players are, that can affect change in their life, in their livelihood. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's not a knock against Eileen, she doesn't know who her state senator is, but I think she learned tonight, oh my God, I can actually text my state senator. But honestly, who's your state senator?
Senator Paulson.
You know, but.
Alright.
I'm Deanna Reeves, and I've actually met Senator Bradley, Senator Pizzo, and my representative, Vicky Lopez, back in July at the first town hall meeting where I expressed my concerns. I met them again in September at the conference at Surfside, and I've met individually with them and their staff. So it is our most important asset, and we need to get involved, regardless of what it is. And it does take a lot of education. I learned a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
My question,
Microphone.
yes, sorry. Okay. My question goes back to the electronic voting. In our particular building, an election is scheduled, I believe it's for April 2nd.
You have an April election.
Okay.
Yes.
20 to 30% of the occupants of the building live in foreign countries. The board, as I had said to you before, I don't mean to be redundant, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
I'll tell you what I'm doing in my district, and hopefully maybe Senator Pizzo can help. When I hear things like this before the bill goes into effect, I'm actually making an appointment with the boards. I'm actually saying I want to meet with all the boards and the property manager. That sometimes gets people's attention, because I'm going to ask the same question. Currently, they have the option to send electronic ballots and do electronic voting. They're choosing not to because they can either do it by mail or by electronic. So I'm going to face them and say, why aren't you doing electronic voting? It does make a difference. So maybe Senator Pizzo wants to go talk to your people or somebody, because honestly, they get scared when I say I'm coming.
Just tell me, after the meeting, not now, who your management company is. And last year, a couple years ago, Mike and I had to go around delivering ballot envelopes to units because a couple of buildings in Aventura, all of a sudden, the management company said they ran out of envelopes. Yeah.
Right here.
Points that we're experiencing, but I'm sure other communities are experiencing as well. Communication between owners. How could the owners get together and effect change when they cannot communicate with each other? And when I'm talking about having access to owners' emails, the association is gathering those emails from owners one by one, and never, I'm talking about property manager and the association, the board, never informs those owners that, hey, there are two ways to provide an email. One is just provide an email, and one is for official notices. No, there is complete silence in getting these emails, and when you ask for it, oh, nobody provided it. But then you ask other people, and everybody's going to say, sure, I gave my email, so I could
And that changes
these
it all.
notices.
That is a very good, that's what that's what on that one, and then you go to the next one. So that says, the bill now says it allows email addresses and fax numbers, to be accessible to all unit owners, if consent to receive documents has been given. So that one's done.
Yeah, that one done. Board members themselves don't have access to invoices. Directors, presidents of sub-associations don't have access to invoices. Everything goes to, you have to look at the structure, HOAs that govern condominiums. We are in a big trouble there. And have everything in the hands of one, and then elections. How can you have elections, how can you allow elections to be influenced by a property manager that is mired in conflict of interest? How can you allow a property manager to come with a pre-filled ballot and ask people to sign and vote a certain way and not have that as a criminal, some kind of penalty? And then meetings only on Zoom. Do we still have meetings only on Zoom where somebody can just cut you off and ask questions? I mean, is that legal? At the condo and at the HOA that cut you off.
What was there was an HOA issue, and I was just trying to find the HOA, because there was an HOA bill that passed as well.
Okay, so we have this structure.
She's a 718.
You're 718? Okay.
We are 2 718s, and on top it's a 720, the master, all our 75% of our dues go to the master, which is a 720. ACs, lobbies, major part of our costs. And all of our amenities, but not only structure of the home. So we're basically an HOA. We are building a condo, but legally we are an HOA.
Okay. Well, I'll get with you as well, because there is a 720 bill that passed as well. That
Here at Aventura Point East.
Okay.
First of all, so refreshing to see elected officials going out of their way, staying late, answering questions, serving their public. Thank you very much. And some shout outs to Mayor Howard and city commissioners and future governor of the state of Florida, Mr. Pizzo, maybe. That's all. I'll volunteer when you decide. So and full disclosure, I am running for the board of my condominium association.
What's wrong with you, man?
A little touched. I'm about to retire, he's supposed to do, I guess, so. But I'm a little still unclear on what the requirements are for some reserves. Because, my association's waiting. Now we owe $1 zillion, we have no money in the bank. And I've lost track of where the law is on that. Thank you all.
So where we are currently on reserves is the structural integrity reserve study has to be completed by the end of '24. The budget that you adopt in 2025, which will presumably be sort of your '26 budget, that budget needs to include the reserve funds that are reflected in that SERS. So you reserve SERS in '24. The budget you adopt in '25 is going to have to reflect the reserves, stated in the SERS, for your '26 budget. Your reserve items, the SERS items can be pooled, but nothing else. The SERS and non-SERS. Did that answer your question? The timeline? Was that your question on the timeline?
But we can't waive them anymore. Is that right?
That is correct. And just to be clear, Florida law always required reserves. This was not the first time Florida required. We always required, but we required waiver by a majority of people present at the meeting.
Which was everybody.
Which could have been very, very small. And so you cannot waive the SERS items. You can waive non-SERS items, but now by a much higher threshold.
And here's so why, because I had the privilege of reviewing the SERS report from ICON. And it is not just the structural integrity reserve study, which is what I thought. The SERS report that they got was every repair that they had to make. So it was extremely confusing. And so I would tell you that it was, how many pages do you think this report was? 66 pages, and you had to cull through it to find just the SERS section. So don't be confused, because the first page showed so many millions of dollars that I said, oh my God, they're right, it's untenable. But then we had to parse down, find the SERS, the 8 items that the law says you must reserve for. So I caution everyone, ensure that you know what the SERS report looks like, because I've never seen one, and when they sent me theirs, I was shocked. It is, I don't know how anyone can really understand it, 66 pages worth of how every single little thing in your building, but it did not just say, this is the structural integrity reserve elements, and this is how much you have to reserve for.
And in the bill last year, we required that every owner get a copy of the milestone inspection, but we did not realize that it was our intent last year, but apparently we didn't expressly state that every homeowner should also get a copy of the completed SERS. Right. This bill does that. Every owner will have to get a copy either electronically or upon request to get a copy of that completed SERS.
Okay, real quick.
Or
Wait.
visit it on the website.
Wait. We have this lady?
Yeah.
reserves.
Not the SERS reserve.
The 4 things that you've always had to have reserves for, you still have to have those. Roofing, paving, painting, anything that's going to be more than $10,000 to replace. And you can still waive all of those. And you can still waive all of those after January 1 of 2025. But it's just the only change that was made is the threshold to waive them is now a majority of all the voters, all the unit owners. So if you have 100, yes. But I heard something about we don't have to have any reserves. That's not true. You can waive them, but you have to have a majority of the owners would have to waive.